The night at Farnborough Airport suddenly lit up under the relentless flashes of paparazzi cameras. In that chaotic moment, Queen Camilla was seen quietly boarding her private jet, her face etched with tension, her eyes darting restlessly as though desperate to avoid the piercing gaze of the public. No official statement was released, no explanation from Buckingham Palace. Everything unfolded in silence, leaving behind a storm of unanswered questions. Why was the Queen leaving Britain in the dead of night? And more importantly, what had truly transpired at Mill House, the private estate in Wiltshire, long regarded as her sanctuary of peace? That peace, however, seemed shattered. Leaked sources delivered a shocking acclaim. King Charles's medication had been mysteriously tampered with. Was this a serious medical mishap? Or the unmistakable trace of a calculating hand pulling strings behind the curtain of power? At a time when the king's health remains one of the nation's most sensitive matters, this revelation landed like a bombshell, shaking the very foundations of public trust in the monarchy. And Camilla's sudden departure only deepened the intrigue. Was she merely the victim of a grave misunderstanding, forced into retreat to avoid a media firestorm? Or was she concealing a far more elaborate move, a hidden gambit yet to be revealed? Which version of events rings true behind the Queen's controversial exit? On the night of September 14th, at precisely 9:30 p.m., the quiet calm around Mill House was violently broken. Beams of torchlight sliced through the darkness, mingled with hurried footsteps from a cluster of journalists and an independent investigative team converging on the property. Once Camilla's private haven away from prying eyes, the estate became the epicenter of a discovery so explosive it threatened to shake the monarchy to its core. At first glance, the neatly stacked boxes of medication in the cabinet appeared harmless. But upon closer inspection, the chilling truth emerged. Reporters uncovered that several boxes of leuprolin, a drug widely used in prostate cancer treatment, had been replaced with cyproterone acetate, an entirely different compound commonly prescribed for hormone-related conditions, administered incorrectly, particularly in elderly patients. Cyproterone acetate can trigger devastating complications, immune suppression, liver damage, even full systemic collapse. The immediate question was unavoidable. How could such a dangerous switch occur within what should be one of the most secure environments in the kingdom, the private residence of a senior royal? Was this merely a catastrophic oversight in medical handling, or evidence of a deliberate and sinister manipulation? According to data released by the UK's National Health Service, just a 50 milliliter dosage of cyproterone acetate administered improperly over several weeks could gravely compromise a patient's immune system. Placed in the context of King Charles, a man in his 70s, rumored to be undergoing treatment for prostate cancer, the risk was magnified tenfold. A single misstep could imperil his health, and for the head of the realm, that would mean nothing short of a succession crisis. Footage captured that night revealed a flurry of urgency. One member of the investigative team, speaking on condition of anonymity, was heard exclaiming upon seeing the medication boxes, "This cannot be an accident. The substitution is far too deliberate, far too calculated." His words poured fuel on an already combustible situation, turning the discovery into a true information bombshell. For the public, this was no longer a private family matter. It instantly became a searing national question of medical security, trust, and transparency. Who had access to these drugs? Who might have had the motive to harm or manipulate the king's health? And why? Above all, was the evidence uncovered at Mill House, Camilla's own private sanctuary, a place accessible only to her closest circle? From a media perspective, the event detonated like a hurricane. Major newspapers rushed to prepare front-page investigations, while on social media, theories and conspiracies multiplied at lightning speed. Some insisted this was an orchestrated effort to weaken Charles and hasten a transition of power. Others suspected Camilla's involvement, directly or indirectly, suggesting she may have known, or worse, concealed something all along. The truth is this: simply the revelation of that discovery has shaken the monarchy to its core. A dynasty already battered by scandals and reputational blows now faces a fresh crisis of confidence. Without swift and transparent answers, suspicion will not stop at Camilla. It will spread through the very structure of royal power. When this truth came to light, it was not only the king's health that was put at risk, but the monarchy's standing that was dragged toward the abyss. That was the blunt conclusion of a political analyst asked about the case. It summed up the public's greatest fear, that behind the gilded walls and pomp, the royal family might be hiding a brutal internal struggle, where a king's health can be exploited like a pawn on a board of power. That is precisely what makes the Ray Mill House finding more than a medical story. It becomes a historic turning point. It hints at covert schemes, invisible hands pulling strings from the shadows. And it poses a stark question to the people of Britain. Can they still trust their monarchy after what has been exposed? On the morning of September 15th at exactly 7:45 a.m., the usually quiet atmosphere of Buckingham Palace was ripped apart by an urgent report. The king's private physician, a man not given to visible emotion, entered the room looking pale. In his hand was a thick medical file, topped by the latest test results. His voice trembled, but was resolute. Your Majesty, we have found abnormalities in the health markers. We have detected an unusual substance in his body. This cannot be taken lightly. Those words fell like a blade. The room fell into a dense, stunned silence. King Charles III sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the papers, his hands trembling slightly. In all his years on the throne, he had faced countless pressures, but never had his own mortality been placed so starkly on the scale. He turned to his aides, anxious but decisive. Have every medication in the palace checked, from the main stores to the bottles in daily use. I want to know exactly what has been put into my body. At the command, the palace machinery sprang into action. The royal medical team fanned out, from the main dispensary to every small cabinet in private quarters. Each bottle and capsule was sealed, labeled, and rushed to emergency labs. Buckingham felt like an invisible battlefield, where the enemy was not armed soldiers, but a hidden danger lurking within the opulence. While the king wrestled with alarm, Prince William arrived. His face was taut with tension, his steps heavy as though bearing the weight of the family. He stared at his father, then at the advisors, and spoke firmly. This cannot stop at checking medication. This could be a deliberate act. I demand a full official investigation now. No one, including those within these walls, is exempt from scrutiny. William's words ratcheted the tension higher. Suspicion flickered among officials and aides. Everyone understood that once an official probe is opened, there is no room for concealment or preferential treatment. It was a drastic but necessary step to protect the throne and the monarchy's honor. Meanwhile, from across the Atlantic, Prince Harry issued a furious message. Though not in Britain, he had been following events closely from the United States. His words were relayed to Buckingham via an advisor. My father's safety must not be taken lightly. Whoever is hiding this, whoever is exploiting his vulnerability, will pay. I do not care who they are or which side they are on. That message was like a spark tossed into a barrel of fire. William and Harry, long estranged by years of family turmoil, suddenly found themselves, if only for a moment, on the same sarham. William, the heir to the throne, demanded action inside the palace. Harry, though far away, sounded the alarm from across the Atlantic. Together, they exerted pressure unlike anything the monarchy's protective walls had ever endured. The atmosphere was suffocating. King Charles sat in silence. Deep lines etched across his brow. A nameless fear rose within him, not just of illness, but of betrayal in the very place that was supposed to keep him safe. He looked at his eldest son and gave a faint nod. It was both permission and surrender, surrendering the truth to be uncovered. No matter the cut, an emergency council was called. Doctors, security advisors, and trusted aides were summoned to report every detail. The king's medical schedule, the list of those with access to him, even the smallest suspicious activity from recent months. Nothing was dismissed as trivial. In those tense hours, Buckingham Palace no longer stood as a symbol of pride and stability. It had become a sealed box, where every glance carried suspicion. Everyone understood that even the tiniest clue could confirm the unthinkable, that a conspiracy was being cultivated from within. Yet as the palace turned inward, one figure chose a startlingly different path: Queen Camilla. Once regarded as Charles's pillar of strength, made a move that stunned everyone. While the royal household poured its energy into internal investigation, Camilla quietly slipped out of the palace, heading to an undisclosed location. The press caught only fleeting images of her motorcade speeding away under tight escort. No one knew her destination. No statement was given. Her sudden absence unleashed a storm of speculation. Was Camilla simply trying to escape the storm? Or did she know something the rest of the palace had yet to grasp? Was there another secret, beyond their control, that only she held? Her departure shifted the story from a health scare to a shadowy chess match. On one side, Buckingham locked in crisis, hunting for answers. On the other, Camilla, moving in silence, as if preparing for something greater. The audience could not look away. Every passing minute, every decision carried the power to alter the fate of a dynasty. And the burning question lingered. Was Buckingham truly seeking the hand behind the plot, or were they, unknowingly, opening a door to an even darker tragedy, with Camilla as the key? That night, London lay under a blanket of cold mist, but at Farnborough Airport, the flashes of cameras turned the runway into a blinding stage. At 10:15 post. On September 15, every lens pointed to one figure: Queen Camilla. She emerged in a long black coat, her face layered with heavy makeup that could not mask her tension. Close guards hurried beside her, eyes sharp, blocking reporters from pressing closer. Journalists, who had waited for hours, shouted over one another, "Your Majesty, why are you leaving the country tonight? Is this about the king's medicine? Did you know about the swapped drugs?" Camilla did not answer. Head lowered, she walked quickly toward a private jet's secluded entrance. Yet her silence itself fanned the flames of rumor more than any words could have. Within minutes, the Daily Mail ran its headline: "The Queen Consort Flees." The word flees did more than describe her departure. It suggested cowardice, guilt, a desperate evasion of truth. That single word spread like wildfire across social media. Twitter exploded with reactions. "She knows something we don't." Duh, Dark Queen, the shadows closing in on the monarchy. This woman has long brought disaster, and now she runs like a criminal. The image of Camilla rushing up the steps of the plane, her frail figure framed in the pale yellow light, has become a symbol of suspicion. She no longer appeared as a queen standing by her king, but as a woman forced into defense, choosing silence over facing the public. The cameras kept flashing, capturing her every move. Each step she took seemed like a blade cutting into the already fragile trust of the people. Onlookers could not help but wonder, if Camilla truly had nothing to hide, why would she leave at the very height of the crisis? A British political analyst even remarked live on television, "The Queen leaving the country just as the King's medication scandal erupted is a shock. It is nothing less than a tacit admission. This could be the deepest fracture in the royal family since the death of Princess Diana." Meanwhile, across online forums, the phrase "the Dark Queen" became a trending hashtag. Anger soon gave way to chilling speculation. Was Camilla involved in switching the king's medication? Was she the hidden hand pulling strings to manipulate the destiny of the crown? While the uproar thundered outside, inside the cabin, Camilla sat silently by the window, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes fixed on the endless night sky. No one knew what she was thinking at that moment. Was it fear at being cornered, or calculation for a move yet to come? That question lingered in the minds of millions of Britons. For when a royal chooses to flee rather than face the storm, the public inevitably believes there is something to conceal. And then came the cutting line, striking through the fog of mystery. So, did Camilla leave out of fear of public outrage? Or because she knows the truth is even darker? It was not just a question for the viewers, but a challenge to the entire British monarchy. For when shadows descend, every silence can be read as guilt. And in leaving Britain, Camilla unwittingly made herself the epicenter of a storm no one could stop. In this thickening atmosphere of suspicion and outrage, one question began to echo from newsrooms, front pages, and even the pubs where ordinary Britons gathered to talk. Was Camilla's sudden downfall simply the result of a personal mistake? Or was there an unseen hand orchestrating it all? The truth that someone as powerful as Queen Camilla, who had once succeeded in transforming herself from a despised mistress into the lawful Queen of England, could so suddenly be cast aside, is difficult to accept if the only explanation lies in a single sapphire ring. Political and royal watchers quickly raised a darker suspicion. Was this the product of a calculated takedown, engineered by those who had always seen Camilla as a thorn in the monarchy's side? To grasp this tangled web, one must look back at the history of bitter conflict between Camilla and key members of the royal family. First is Prince William, eldest son of Princess Diana. For William, Camilla has never truly been a stepmother. Her presence only ever served as a reminder of his mother's torment, the betrayal, the humiliation, and finally the tragic death that many still believe was tied to injustice within the monarchy. On several occasions, William is said to have bluntly refused to accept Camilla as family. His coldness was not merely personal, but a matter of honor. William, seen as the dutiful son and a symbol of the modern monarchy, carries the legacy of his mother deeply within him. And in that legacy, Camilla's name is inseparable from pain. That is why, when the scandal of King Charles's altered medication erupted, the public gaze fell on William. Many believed he had every motive to see Camilla cornered, or, at the very least, no reason to intervene if others sought to bring her down. No less significant is Princess Anne, the king's sister, known for her bluntness, toughness, and unyielding loyalty to royal tradition. Anne never hid her disdain for Camilla's elevation to queen. To Anne, so, Camilla has always been a shameful shadow in the family's history, unworthy of stepping into a role once held by a global icon like Princess Diana. In private meetings, Anne repeatedly opposed giving Camilla more power or status. It is even said that she once told Charles outright, "Camilla will bring chaos, not stability." Well, so now, in the midst of this crisis, people are left to ask, did Anne's hand play any part in pushing Camilla into this spiral with no escape? The public has reason to wonder, for Anne is one of the few royals with both the will and the authority to do so. The first theory, which many experts find plausible, casts Camilla not as a victim, but as the active orchestrator. For years, rumors have whispered that she constantly sought to manipulate Charles, particularly regarding his health. At 76, Charles faces a host of physical challenges, from heart issues to cancer risks, secret medical visits, highly classified prescriptions, and discreet treatment schedules have fueled public speculation. Who really controls this process? Time and again, the answer that surfaces is Camilla. She is suspected of deliberately intervening, adjusting dosages, or even influencing doctors in ways that benefit her, effectively prolonging Charles's dependence on her. A recent medical report from Oxford University noted that improper dosing of certain cancer medications can backfire, not only worsening the condition, but also triggering mental complications such as anxiety, paranoia, and loss of behavioral control. If Camilla did intervene, Charles's occasional blank stares in public or sudden outbursts could be direct consequences. In this scenario, the sapphire ring scandal is not the cause, but the tipping point. Exposing a truth, Camilla's ambition and lack of restraint had spiraled out of control. Yet the second theory paints an entirely different picture. Rather than a manipulator, Camilla may have been the victim of a meticulously planned scheme. Consider the timing of the scandal, precisely when Charles's health had become the most sensitive issue in the royal family. In such circumstances, any news implicating Camilla would immediately trigger a domino effect, undermining her position and casting doubt on Charles's ability to rule. Some commentators in The Guardian pointed out how quickly the scandal erupted, how uniformly the information appeared, and how it bore the hallmarks of a premeditated media campaign. Within hours of the Farnborough Airport photo of Camilla surfacing, hundreds of Twitter accounts simultaneously posted the phrase, "The Dark Queen." Social media analysts trace many of these accounts back to creations just days earlier. This raises the suspicion that a powerful faction was deliberately shaping public opinion to brand Camilla as guilty, force her into exile, and clear the way for someone else to assume influence. Viewed closely, the affair resembles a political trap designed to strike at Camilla's most vulnerable point, her reputation. For decades, the public has labeled her the third party and the woman who destroys families. Every effort to rebuild her image since ascending to queen has never fully succeeded. Therefore, even an incident as seemingly minor as the Sapphire Ring scandal could undo all of her progress in an instant. This lends credibility to the notion that a hidden hand orchestrated the events. The question remains, who holds that hand? Could it be William, seeking to protect his mother's legacy? Zorn, who has always viewed Camilla as an intruder, or another faction within the royal family? Silent for years, but now seizing the opportune moment. Notably, throughout the crisis, Charles appeared to take no decisive action to defend Camilla. His appearances were scarce, statements vague, and questions deftly avoided. This only reinforced public perception of an unbridgeable gap between them. Some experts go further, suggesting that Charles's silence is evidence he knew precisely what was happening, but felt compelled to allow it to preserve the throne. If true, Camilla becomes little more than a pawn on the chessboard of power, sacrificed by the very husband to whom she had devoted her life. No matter which theory holds true, one thing is certain: this affair has opened a dark new chapter for the British monarchy. Public anger has extended far beyond Camilla herself, spreading to the institution as a whole. People are beginning to ask whether the monarchy can still maintain its image in a society increasingly skeptical of its relevance. In the latest opinion polls, support for the royal family has plummeted, while calls for reform, or even the abolition of the monarchy, have risen sharply. Camilla's scandal is no longer a private matter. It has become the spark for a far-reaching institutional crisis. Amid the storm, questions about the invisible hand behind the scenes remain unresolved. Was it simply Camilla's overreaching ambition, or a sophisticated plot by hidden adversaries? Perhaps it was a combination of both, the ambitions of one woman amplified by the cold calculations of those biding their time. Whatever the answer, the fact is clear: the British monarchy is entering an unprecedented tempest. On the 16th September, the turbulence officially spilled beyond the cold stone walls of Buckingham Palace, reaching the eyes and ears of the entire world. Major media outlets, from CNN in the United States, BBC in the United Kingdom, to The Guardian with its piercing analyses, made it clear that this was no baseless rumor. Front-page headlines screamed, "What is Buckingham hiding?" and the Queen consort in question. Overnight, what might have been a contained issue of medication mismanagement became an international media storm. International news organizations didn't just report the events, they dissected, compared, and scrutinized every detail. CNN brought in medical experts to explain the dangers of misusing cyproterone acetate in elderly patients. BBC connected the current events to old cracks within the monarchy. From the tragic divorce of Charles and Diana to Camilla's long-standing public image as the third party who broke up a family. The Guardian, with its cold, incisive prose, posed the question: could this be proof that the monarchy is not untouchable, but rife with intrigue, conflict, and hidden hands? On social media, particularly Twitter, outrage surged in waves. Tens of thousands of comments condemned Camilla, dubbing her the Dark Queen. Forums resurfaced old photographs, contrasting her smiling face in the palace with the anguish once worn by Diana. Once again, Diana's name echoed like an unhealed scar in the collective consciousness of the British public. Many posts went viral, shared millions of times with the blunt caption, "History repeats itself." These comparisons intensified scrutiny on Camilla. In the public eye, she was not only implicated in the medication affair, but had become a symbol of tragedy, loss, and betrayal. The pressure created an atmosphere of unprecedented public indictment in modern royal history. Meanwhile, William unexpectedly emerged as the figure in whom both the media and the public placed their trust. Every time he appeared, even briefly stepping out of a black car at the palace, images circulated widely with captions like, "Protector of the throne and family honor." He did not need many words. His steely gaze and stern expression in captured moments conveyed the image of a prince standing against the storm, defending his mother's legacy and the future of the monarchy. To the public, William represented justice and hope amidst chaos. By contrast, Harry, across the Atlantic, chose to intervene with pointed remarks. In a live interview with an American news channel, he stated, "My father's safety cannot be overlooked. I want his full medical records to be transparent. We cannot allow darkness to continue to shroud the monarchy." His words ignited immediate debate. Some praised Harry's candor, saying he voiced what everyone wanted to know. Others criticized him for pouring fuel on the fire, deepening the rift between himself and his family. Inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere during those days was tense as a taut wire. On one side was King Charles, grappling with illness and tremendous public pressure. On the other, Camilla, the eye of the storm, whose every small action was scrutinized and transformed into evidence against her. Between them, William and Harry stood at opposite poles, one a symbol of public faith, the other breaking silence with public critique. International media wasted no time in fueling the tension. Articles repeatedly evoked memories of Diana. Images from the 1997 funeral, showing young William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin, were broadcast across countless channels. Public attention had shifted. The story was no longer just about medication tampering, but about legitimacy, about the shadow of Diana that has loomed over the monarchy for nearly 3 decades. The pressure transformed this moment into the climax of the unfolding saga. Audiences could feel one undeniable truth. Buckingham Palace was no longer an untouchable fortress, but the epicenter of a global crisis. Every figure was placed in a position from which there was no retreat. Charles was tested by both his health and public trust. William was thrust into a role as the voice of public opinion. Harry became the opposition, breaking the silence while isolating himself. And Camilla, the central figure, faced the prospect of losing everything as the waves of public anger grew ever fiercer. As tensions reached their peak, the most pressing question echoed across headlines, forums, and news bulletins. What does the future hold for Camilla as queen? From the moment the swapped medication in King Charles' treatment records was discovered, to Camilla's stunned departure from the palace, and the resulting wave of public outrage, a seismic shock hit the British monarchy. This was no longer merely a medical story. It sparked suspicion about power, concealed truths, and above all, deep fissures within the royal family itself. People began to ask, is the monarchy hiding a larger conspiracy? Is what the public sees only the tip of the iceberg? With international press reviving tragic memories of Princess Diana, Camilla once again became the target of scrutiny. For many, she was no longer queen, but a symbol of division and betrayal. Meanwhile, Prince William emerged as the embodiment of a son determined to defend his mother's legacy and the family's honor. In contrast, Prince Harry demanded full transparency of his father's medical records, further inflaming public debate. Between these opposing currents, King Charles appeared as a symbol of vulnerability, both a victim and the focal point of an ongoing, seemingly unending crisis. And at the end, a haunting question lingered. Was Camilla truly complicit in this affair, or merely an unwitting pawn caught in the ruthless game of royal power? If she is innocent, who is orchestrating it all? If she is guilty, how much longer can she hold the throne? We want to hear your thoughts. Is Camilla a victim or a mastermind? Is this the final chapter for her or merely the beginning of a larger scheme? Leave a comment and share your perspective.